Welcome to 100 Yards Football this morning. This morning we have an NFL draft special. We're going to break down the quarterback out of the University of Ole Miss, Matt Corral. So if you like the video this morning, please come in and share it. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. And joining me today is a guy that knows all about scouting players at a high level. He's the writer right now as he covers the Detroit Lions for Sports Illustrated. You know about that magazine, the top sports magazine in the country. He's also a professional scout, and he writes for NFL Draft Diamonds. Then he was a former scout and special team scout with the New York Jets under Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. And he has one of the best books out there on Amazon, Whatever It Takes. Please get a copy because it will change your life from a sports standpoint and see how it really is hard to be a scout on the next level. My man coming from Key West, Florida, Mr. Daniel Kelly. How you doing this morning, sir?
Hey, I'm doing real well, Mr. Turner. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Ready to see what you got to say about Matt Corral, quarterback of Ole Miss, who a lot of people are saying is the number one quarterback in the 2022 NFL draft class. So it's your floor, sir. Tell us why Matt Corral is having an ascension this year in college football.
Absolutely. And out of all the quarterbacks I've looked at so far, I would say he is the best quarterback I've seen so far who is pro-ready, to your point, Mr. Turner. I have a lot to unpack, guys, today, probably more than I've ever had on a quarterback before. I've spent extensive time studying this guy in 3 different games this season, 2021, against Louisville, against Tennessee, against Alabama. I love the high level of competition. Want to take a look at him in all 3 of those games. Let's just kind of go back to the beginning. This is a guy that played real well in high school. I think threw for over 10,000 yards. He's a guy that had a scholarship offer on the table from Alabama. Chose instead to go to Ole Miss. This is a guy that he committed to Ole Miss as the number 4 pro-style quarterback in his recruiting class, according to 24/7 Sports. He's a guy that was when he was in that Elite 11 competition in high school, and he was somebody who a scout compared favorably to Matthew Stafford. I read going through and doing some background research work, and that's a very important part of the scouting process, guys. We all talk about the film, we all talk about what we see on the field, but there's a lot that goes into the background work as well. This is a right-handed quarterback, 6'2", 205. He's got some Cajun to him. He's got some of that edge to him. He's got some Brett Favre, or Brett Favors, we used to, as he was called when he was drafted. He's got a little bit of that to his game. Comes from a 2-parent household. Peter and Elizabeth Corral. This is important. This is our piece of the scouting process. I've done scouting reports for 4 different teams, and helped out in some of the different things with a scout different times, kind of off the record stuff. And, a kid coming from a 1 or a 2-parent household is part of the discussion on NFL evaluations in the war room. This guy, he's his own man. Corral's his own man. He's a guy that's got the tattoos on his arms. You can tell he's his own man. And he's one word I can use to describe Matt Corral. If somebody said, describe him in one word to me, I would say impressive. This is a guy that's got swag. This is a guy that's a much more confident and pro-ready version of Zach Wilson with a much stronger arm. Everything's about first impressions. You turn on the film, what did I see? My first impressions were, well, he operates all the shotgun. That primarily, like most all of them do. This guy has a lot of confidence that shines through. I like what I see in his eyes. Matt Millen, the old linebacker that played for the Raiders and 49ers and for the Redskins years ago, he talked about the importance of what he saw in quarterbacks' eyes. I learned that as a young man coming up before I got into the NFL, before I interned with Tony Dungy, before I got with the New York Jets. I heard Matt Millen talk about that, something that's always stuck with me. I like Matt Corral's eyes. And what I mean by that is I like the confidence. I like how sure he looks in his eyes. That's important. The eyes are the window to the soul. You can always tell a lot about a quarterback by looking at his eyes. This is a guy, when you talk about how he is in the pocket, he has excellent ball handling skills. He has a nice play action fake. You actually wonder who has the ball. Is it the running back? Is it him? He's a guy that can run a nice option and take off and run the ball himself. He's very smooth looking. He's a smooth operator in the pocket. He's very decisive. That's the second word I would pick to use when it comes to Matt Corral, is the word decisive. He makes fairly quick decisions, not always, but usually. And he's somebody that shows doesn't just a one-trick pony, doesn't just go to his first read. He shows he can go through his progressions. You see the head moving around. You see him looking across the field and looking around. He's got some gunslinger to him. He's definitely more on that in a minute. I'll circle back to the gunslinger part. But this is a guy that tends to throw from a three-quarter kind of a sidearmed delivery. And for lack of a better way and a more polished way of saying it, he's got a hell of an arm, as they would say in the scouting rooms. He can really put a lot of zip on it. He can put a lot of heat on the ball. And the thing I like, too, about Matt Corral is that, he's somebody that spreads the ball around. He throws at all different points of the field. This is very different than what we saw with Malik Willis when we talked about him last week, who just throws on the perimeters. Corral is a guy who can spread the ball around to all points of the field. Very important. He can rifle it in there. And this is something too. This is not just a guy that can play in the pocket and he's just, he's a sitting duck. This is a guy that has very good mobility. Now, I'm not talking about elite mobility, but I'm talking about good mobility. This is a guy who can really move around in the pocket, buy time, roll out, and run if he has to. This is a true dual threat, a passing and a running threat at the same time. Very important, something that's an added benefit, because when you're mobile and you're going to be drafted in the upper part of the first round, you're going to probably be going to a team that has offensive line deficiencies. And so it's very important that you have a quarterback that has mobility to offset some of those deficiencies, and Matt Corral has that. This kid is tough as nails. Saw him take a shot. He got up, against Tennessee, was hobbling around, came back in the game, and then touch. I want to talk about the touch. Matt Corral throws a very nice looking ball. And he's a guy, like, we sit there and watch Trey Lance just about, throw rocks at tin cans and throw it so hard he just knocks him off the fence every time. This is not what this guy is. This guy does have the ability to really sling it in there, but he also has the ability to kind of take some gas and take some heat off the ball and throw some nice touch passes. Another mark of a pro-ready quarterback. This is a guy who just does a lot of impressive things on film. I like, another thing that, sometimes doesn't get talked about enough from a scouting standpoint. I like the tempo. I like the rhythm in which he operates the offense with. This is very important. We've watched Trevor Lawrence down with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who seems to be out of rhythm, doesn't seem to have the right tempo. The team, struggles at times. This guy has a good tempo and a good rhythm. And of course, those are all the things I like about him. I like the fact that he can throw all the passes. He can throw all the passes at the short, intermediate, and deep levels of the field. He's somebody that spreads the ball around, like I said. He looks very good in the pocket. This guy looks like the real deal. And most of all, I like the confidence. I can't talk about the confidence enough. This is very important, especially at the quarterback position. This is really what separates guys when they come into the league, is guys with this ultra confidence tend to do it very well. Once a quarterback starts to lose his confidence, for example, Jared Goff with the Detroit Lions, who's been on and off again like a roller coaster, whose confidence has been flickering like a light bulb that's going out. once a quarterback starts to lose his confidence, I don't care if he can throw a football through a tire from 80 yards away. He's not going to do it. This guy has the confidence. Now there's two sides to every coin in life, right? There's the positives, and then there's, of course, there's the negatives. Let's circle back for a second, and I don't have a lot to negative really to harp on with this guy. But let's circle back for a moment to the label of gunslinger that I put on him. At times, that gunslinger is a two-edged sword. Okay, it's something where at times he gets a little too inaccurate. It's not a huge concern from an evaluation standpoint from what I saw in those 3 games on film, but once in a while, his ball placement is not where you'd want it to be. Now, he's not like Zach Wilson, whose ball placement puts him in hazard of throwing interceptions all the time. It's just not quite as he doesn't throw dangerous passes all the time. Now, there are a few times here and there he does make a bad decision and throws a ball that he shouldn't throw, like he did against Tennessee, but sometimes makes ill-advised passes, but not that often. But that gunslinger thing, guys, that is a double-edged sword. Occasionally, my second point, I feel that he holds the ball maybe a little too long. Not a lot of times, but again, it's noticeable once in a while. Also, his accuracy deep is a concern. It's so, guys. He missed a deep shot left against Louisville. He was 2 out of 4 deep against Tennessee when I watched. He was 0 for 3 against Alabama. Now, one of them to his defense should have been caught. Was right in the guy's hands. But that's something too that you want to look at. If you're an NFL owner, if you're an NFL general manager, if you're sitting in a war room, a big question that's going to come up in pre-draft meetings for me is Matt Corral's deep ball. No, he definitely can get it there. But the accuracy, the placement, that kind of thing. In the 3/4, sidearm thing. My next point, that can also at times he throws a 3/4 sidearm. That can be a concern for NFL teams as well. I think when I think of 3/4 sidearm, I think of Bernie Kosar that played for the Cleveland Browns. Of course, had a real nice, good career. But the thing that concerns NFL teams about the 3/4 sidearm release is those defensive linemen are huge and they're tall and they get their arms up, and there's passing lanes. And so sometimes, that's why teams like the big overhand delivery. He has kind of an unorthodox delivery, and kind of goes with his personality and kind of goes with the whole package. Not necessarily a bad thing to be unorthodox. He's just a little bit different, and that'll be something that teams will take a look at. In terms of like background, this is a big part of the NFL evaluation process. Like I said, guys, research, looking at the guy's past has a lot to do with the scouting process. In an article I spotted online, it said that Corral's life has straddled a fence, quote unquote. So I'm like, okay, well, let's unpack this a little bit. What does that mean? I look back at the beginnings of his career in college. He was kind of up and down with his first start in 2019 against Memphis. He was 9 on 19, 93 yards, interception. From there, he did improve as the season progressed and completed 62% of his passes. He suffered some bruised ribs in 2019, and of course, he had the recent knee injury as well that could be hindering him in the Heisman competition going forward. That's my first concern. My second concern is that early on, even Corral himself said that he wasn't as focused as he needed to be or should have been. Even himself talked about his work ethic and questioning his own work ethic when he first got there. So I'd want to drill down on that a little bit and make sure that that's right. If I'm going to make that kind of investment in the first round, I want to make sure that's there. Third concern, birds of the feather flock together, the old saying in life. He made a real close friend named Jalen Hall, receiver, who he played with in high school, that ended up doing 30 months of jail time for a home invasion and burglary. Now, I'm not talking about Matt Corral. I'm talking about who appears to be one of his closest or best friends, This is a question that teams are going to ask him. Teams will pull these guys into a room and they'll ask them and say, "Well, tell me about this," because it's the old saying, "Guilty by association." I'm not saying, again, I'm not even remotely suggesting that Corral is going to do anything like that, but teams are going to ask questions about these things if it's out there, and so that's something I looked at. And Corral has made comments that he gets along well with troubled kids. When he was a kid himself, of course. So that's, when you go back to that article where it talks about how Corral's life has kind of straddled a fence, that's what they're talking about. And then the fourth concern was that TMZ. Now, when TMZ grabs a hold of something, they say it's never really a good thing sometimes. But they grabbed a hold of the story, guys. Where Matt Corral in high school, the high school he was going to at the time, he got in a fight with Wayne Gretzky's kid, Tristan, and his parents pulled him out of that high school. And that high school he was going to, where Gretzky's kid went, the tuition was $35,000 a year. They said a lot of kids flashed cash. It was a real upper scale school. His parents pulled him out of that school and transferred him to another high school. And Corral has also made some comments. There was a Q&A online, if you go look for it. They asked him some questions, just unrelated to football. One of the questions they asked him, they said, who's your favorite superhero? And Corral commented, I'm paraphrasing, he said Superman, because he actually, quote, has superpowers, unlike the smart rich kids. So there's something maybe there that, I'd want to look into. He made another comment about saying he likes Long Beach a lot because, quote, there's a lot of down-to-earth people here. It's good for the people are good for me. So, I'd want to ask questions. If I'm an NFL general manager, I'd ask him, well, what do you exactly mean by that? Because in the NFL, everybody's rich. And, so I'd want to see how he can get along with people, how he can get along with his teammates who are all multimillionaires. That would be a big thing that I would be looking at. The fifth concern would be Corral admits to having a spell of drinking in his past, saying that he called drinking a vice, quote unquote, that he has since overcome. And he says he does not drink any longer. But that's a question I would have as well. Overall, I like how he performed at the highest levels. I think, again, going back to the scouting thing I always talk about on our shows, guys, the level of competition is huge. I especially like looking at him against Alabama. That's about the closest you're going to get to a dress rehearsal for the NFL. I like that. His team got crushed, but he kept firing the ball. He kept competing. He scored a touchdown even late in the game. They keep his streak alive at that point of consecutive games. I think he was at 15 consecutive games at that point, throwing a touchdown pass in. He kept that going against Alabama. He never gave up. That's another thing I really liked about that game against Alabama. Even though his team was getting crushed, he kept firing, he kept competing, he kept playing until the final gun sounded. I like that a lot. Very important. I like the guy overall. I mean, he grew on me. He resonates with me. I like how he carries himself. I like his body language on the field. That's another big thing to look at from an evaluation scouting standpoint, is a player's body language. Is he kind of slumped over? Is he carry himself confident? How does he look? What does his body look like? What's his body language saying? If he couldn't talk, what would you say he's saying? I like, again, how decisive he is. He seems to make those quick decisions with the ball most of the time. He's a heck of a lot more pro-ready than Zach Wilson. He's a heck of a lot more pro-ready than Trey Lance. Or Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. Could this guy be an Atlanta Falcon? There's another number two there. Matt Corral was number two. Could he be an Atlanta Falcon? Quite possibly. Or could he be a New York Giant? That's another distinct possibility, depending if they've had enough of Daniel Jones in that experiment up with the Giants, because check this out, guys. Matt Corral says while he doesn't really have a favorite team, he more or less likes certain players. He said, if I had to pick a favorite team, it would be the G-Men, would be the New York Giants. And Corral's dream, this is interesting. When you go back and you type in Matt Corral's background, there's some interesting stuff. I encourage our viewers to do so. There's some Q&As. There's some interesting stuff that'll have you a chance to get to know this guy as a person. And he said his dream is to own a penthouse, one of those penthouse suites overlooking New York City. So when you look at all those things combined, could he end up in New York? Quite possibly. Does he have the personality for it? Much more so than Zach Wilson any day of the week. Could the guy come into the New York Giants and do pretty well? Yeah, I think he could. So that's a distinct possibility. But again, circling back, if I'm a general manager in the National Football League, which is my aspiration, number one, I need to get more clarity. If I'm sitting down looking Matt Corral and those confident eyes he has, I'm going to ask him questions. What does it mean when people say you're straddling a fence? What does it mean that you like to hang out with troubled kids? Because there are some troubled grown-up kids in the NFL too. So I need to know that. And of course, you're looking for tendencies. You're looking to project and see what could happen. Now that could be a bad thing, but also can be a good thing. This guy could be a shoulder to lean on. This guy could be an ear that can bend to listen to guys in the locker room. This guy could also pull a team together. So being someone who straddles the fence doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing or project that he's going to be somebody who ends up on the front page of a newspaper on an NFL team city newspaper. It can also be a good thing because he can also pull guys together and he can help guys as a counselor of sorts in the locker room as a leader. So that straddling the fence thing can also be good. Could mean he could relate to all players, and it could be a very positive thing as it plays out. We have to get clarity on that. I need medical clarity about Matt Corral. I need to know a little bit more about the knee injury sustained against Tennessee, and I also need to know, make sure the ribs check out that he hurt in 2019. Number three, I need to have more clarification about what he means by these kind of snide little remarks about the rich smart kids. I need to know what he means by that and have him explain that. And number four, I need to know if I'm dealing with a hothead. Now, everybody, sometimes gets in a fight in high school. That's not the end of the world. But it wasn't a lot said about it, but he was transferred to another high school. That means to me it was probably a bigger deal than what was written about it. And so I need to know, is this guy a hothead? Is this somebody that's going to go off on the field and do something wild? And number five, I'm asking about the drinking. I'm asking about, tell me about the drinking. Tell me about how you talked about that as being a vice, because the off the field stuff, the character stuff is just as important as the on the field stuff. I mean, we're seeing it play out right now. I had a lot of character concerns about wide receiver Kadarius Toney coming out of the University of Florida. He's another guy that went to the New York Giants, and we've read more about what he's been doing, outside the game, football, between the whistles, than we have sometimes what he's been doing on the field with the ejection, punching the Dallas Cowboys guy in the head, all the kinds of things that have gone on there. So that's, the social media stuff. So I'm not suggesting that Matt Corral is going to be one of those guys, but I have to know the questions. But from a pure football standpoint, yeah, this guy's got it. This guy's got the opportunity and the potential to be very good at the next level in the National Football League.
You look at Matt Corral, he goes to Ole Miss, which is 55 miles from my hometown, the 901 Memphis, Tennessee. And you broke down his skill level, which I totally agree. The delivery, A+, the release quickness, A+, the rushing threat, A+. But the thing I like about Matt Corral is that he came all the way from the West Coast. Mm-hmm. And went to a school so deep in the South. So that tells me he's a little versatile. He's a guy that doesn't mind where he goes. Wherever he goes, he's going to put up numbers. And then he went to a school that's had great quarterback tradition. Eagle Day, 1955. Ray Brown, 1956. Bobby Franklin, 1958. Jake Gibbs, who played with the Yankees, 1960. Perry Lee Dunn, 1963. Of course, the great Archie Manning. We all know how that turned out. 1969. Norris Reese, 1973, who ended up starting the Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. John Forcade, one of the most highly recruited quarterbacks, came out of my high school graduating class in 1978, went to Ole Miss. Ken Austin, 1982, who became a pretty good football player in the Canadian League. And, of course, Eli Manning in 2003. But the thing that I'm going to take away with Matt Corral is today is he's a special player, and he reminds me so much of Jim McMahon when he was at BYU. Like you said, Daniel, the swagger, that West Coast thing, some special that, hey, man, I can overcome a lot of adversity. And I'm going to tell you this in so many words. Look at his stats this year compared to last year. Last year, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. This year, 2,002 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 1 INT.
Good point.
14 interceptions, down to 1 INT. I'm liking this kid, Matt Corral. He's a very special player. Final words about Matt Corral this morning. From Key West, Florida, my man, Mr. Daniel Kelly.
Absolutely. Thankfully, the humidity is finally lifted down here. Matt Corral, my scouting mentor in the NFL taught me, years ago. He said, I think I've mentioned this on a show or two of ours. Danny, he's the only one who can call me Danny. He said, Danny, if you got a quarterback, you got a chance. And, when you watch these guys, either they excite you on film or they do not. And once they put on an NFL helmet, they don't go from not exciting you to exciting you. This guy is exciting at this level. I just like the way he moves in offense. I like what I see. This is a guy that to me would be worth taking in a top 5, top 10 position in the NFL in the draft coming up. This is a guy who would be on my draft board. And I think that this guy could really be good from a team chemistry standpoint, because chemistry is what it's all about. Putting a team together with the right leader who can pull everyone together and get everyone moving in the right direction. I think Matt Corral has that intangible, and I think he could be and will be special in the National Football League.
My final words about Matt Corral, quarterback of Ole Miss. Makes a man take things over. Lets him lose hard to swallow. Put you there where things are hollow. It's called Fame by the great poet and singer David Bowie. Matt Corral gonna be famed in the National Football League when his time come up in the 2022 NFL draft. Mm-hmm. So if you like the video today, please comment and share it. You heard my man from Key West, Florida, one of the best I know how to do it, former NFL scout with the New York Jets, Mr. Daniel Kelly. I'm Vincent Turner. We surely appreciate you watching our video today here on Matt Corral, quarterback, Ole Miss Rebels, as he entered the 2022 NFL draft. And special thanks to our producer, Mr. Logan Landers, for making it happen this morning here on 100 Yards Football. So if you like the video, please comment and share it. And before we leave this morning, Daniel, do me a favor. Can you do me a favor this morning?
Are you going to ask me to sing?
No, I'm not going to ask you to sing.
Okay. I did do some karaoke this week. So.
Can you get our audience your contact information of all the platforms you're on right now?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. I'm on Twitter at Daniel Kelly Book. I'm on Facebook. I have Whatever It Takes NFL Talk on Facebook. And my book is available wherever books are sold online. Whatever It Takes book.com is my book website. And you can find my book, like I said, Amazon or anywhere else. And my book, let me close with this. My book is not just a, hey, look at me moment. Hey, I made it in the NFL. My book was written, it took me over 10 years to write, and I type 90 words a minute. That gives you some idea the kind of work that went into this. The book is about helping you get to your dreams, inspire you to go for it. Because let me say something to my audience right now, okay, and to our audience, is that if you have a dream, you can achieve it. If you can see it, you can achieve it. Mark Trestman's taught me that too and said that throughout the years. So it's not just about, hey, my book's, look at me, I'm all this, that, and a bag of chips, I'm in the NFL. My book is helping you get to your dreams.
Thank you. Have a blessed week. All the football fans out there, enjoy some college and pro football this weekend. I'm Vincent Turner. Join me this morning has been Mr. Daniel Kelly. We'd like to say thanks and have a blessed day.
Have a blessed one, guys. Thank you.
Football.